How do you sail into the sunset? Well, there's three options there we're going to talk about tonight. One is safe harbour, two is deeds of company arrangements, and then the third one is Josh's reforms. So we flick the slides again. The first option is safe harbour. That was introduced in September 2017 and was meant to be reviewed after 2 years of implementation. Now, I'm clearly no good with computers, but I'm pretty good with maths. I can tell that 2 years have passed, 3 years has now passed. There's still been no review, but it's not the first time the government said they're going to do something that they haven't. The reason that the laws were implemented was basically people thought that by putting a company into administration and it was struggling, it cruelled the business and its chance of being restructured. So what Safe Harbour did was encourage directors to remain in control of the business that was in financial distress without the publicity, so it wasn't publicised, and it then protected the directors when they did it correctly from being personally liable for insolvent trading. Now, it's not disclosed, it flies under the radar. If you're listed on the stock exchange, you don't need to notify the ASX. So that was the introduction or the purpose for it. If we change the slide. So when does it start? The person or the directors in this instance, they need to develop one or more courses of action that are reasonably likely to lead for a better outcome for the company. Now, when we talk about better outcome, that means an outcome that's better for the company than the immediate appointment of an administrator or liquidator. Now, that course of action can be varied, it can be flexible, but it needs to be monitored on the way through. To qualify for Safe Harbour, if you flick the next one, Shane, there's a number of criteria that need to be met. The first one on the slide here is that you need to be up to date with payment of your employee entitlements. Included in employee entitlements is obviously superannuation, and that knocks out a hell of a lot of companies because, surprise, surprise, that's often not paid. The next thing you need to do is be up to date with your taxation reporting obligations. So not necessarily payment, but everything needs to be lodged. You need to be compliant with your usual director obligations, maintaining proper books and records and the like. And you also need to appoint an appropriately qualified entity. Now, there's no strict definition as to what that is, but clearly the most appropriate person would be a registered liquidator. They've got the experience, they've got the knowledge. And we talk about developing a course of action, as we indicated before, something that's going to offer more than what happens in liquidation. Now, whilst we indicated that Safe Harbour is not publicised, therefore we don't know how many have been done, how many have been successful, how many haven't. What we do know is that we at Dyneco have done a number of these engagements, a number of them being very successful. I can talk about one of them just briefly, given that it did actually go into administration, which wasn't a bad thing. It's the Roger David group of companies, which if we had been appointed liquidators straight off the bat, the employees would have got paid in full, the bank would have got 50% of their money, and unsecured creditors nothing. So we oversaw a safe harbour regime which ran for 8 or 9 months. We oversaw a restructure process when the number of stores were reduced down from over 100 to approximately 50. Other measures were put into place, but it did come to a point in time where the course of action was no longer able to be sustained, and the most appropriate course was to then place the company into administration. The effect of all that, though, was that employees got paid in full, the bank got paid in full, and a deed of company arrangement was put forward whereby creditors got 15 cents on the dollar as opposed to zero. And the silver lining for the directors was that when the administrator does his report, he talks about the good, the bad and the ugly, what they get in a liquidation, and liquidators can recover insolvent trading. But in this instance, it was pretty easily determined that they did all the right things, they did their safe harbour and therefore were protected for insolvent trading. So that's an example of where safe harbour comes into effect and is a good option in these circumstances.